الصلاة والسلام عليك يا
Sheikh Imran Hosein, it's April the 4th. We've come to you for some guidance. I always think Syria is the most important issue. If Syria is lost, everything is lost. That is what I am told.
Morris, we are located at a historic moment in history. A moment which is in many respects similar to the summer of 1914. The first Arab Spring led to the First World War. The Second World War was the unfinished business of the First World War because of the way they treated Germany. So the First and the Second World Wars were actually one war in two parts. And now the Second Arab Spring is leading the way to the next World War. And Syria seems to be playing the role that Sarajevo played 100 years ago. I don't think that Syria is going to be lost anymore because they have done all that they can do for 2 years, and without the Security Council no-fly zone over Syria and NATO bombing of the Syrian armed forces, they cannot dislodge the Syrian government. Similarly, they could not have dislodged the Libyan government had they not got that mysterious vote in the Security Council in which Russia and China abstained, knowing full well that that abstention was a death sentence for the Libyan government. One day the history will be written, and one day we'll know why Russia abstained and China abstained. But the fact that both of them abstained indicates collusion between both of them, a common understanding. What that common understanding was, and what was the quid pro quo for that abstention, which allowed the destruction of the Libyan government, we still do not know. But one day the truth will come out. On this occasion, both China and Russia have been standing firm. And as a consequence, they have not been able to dislodge the Syrian government. So I believe that we are now on the doorstep of a Turkish attack on Syria. Of course, as usual, the modus operandi of the Zionists is to have a false flag attack and use that as a justification for war. They've done it so many times, the world is tired now. The only people who cannot yet recognize that it was the Israeli Mossad in collaboration with the CIA who planned and executed the 9/11 terrorist attack on America seem to be the scholars of Islam, who have either lost their sight or lost their backbone or lost both. We can count on the hands of our fingers on our hands how many prominent scholars of Islam have stood up to declare what most Americans now know, that it was the Israeli Mossad and the CIA who planned and executed 9/11. So when Turkey attacks Syria, which can happen now at any time, since Netanyahu has offered his apology and kissed and made up with the Turkish Prime Minister and Turkish government, and they're now ready to collude in that attack on Turkey, on Syria. We can expect the attack on Syria to take place at any time from Turkey. When that attack takes place, you and I and the rest of the people of the world who have some semblance of sanity still left in them would know that it is unprovoked aggression and will not be fooled by any chemical false flag attack. When there is aggression, Morris, there is aggression, regardless of who are the victims of aggression. Once it is aggression, Islam, the religion, stands on the side of the victims of aggression and stands up against the aggressor. That is Islam. And no amount of argument that Assad is this and Assad is that and Assad's father was this and Assad's father was that, and so many women they have raped and so many children they have cut, they have massacred, and this and that and the other and the other and the other is relevant to the discussion. When there is aggression, you condemn aggression. Full stop. You stand at the side of the victims of aggression, support them, full stop. And you stand up against the oppressor and oppose him, full stop. That is the message that has to be conveyed at this critical moment when we stand at the doorstep of the next World War.
I guess Israel itself might get involved and attack Syria at the same time.
I doubt that the Israelis are going to jump in right away. I think the Israelis are going to be more likely to want NATO to get involved. And when NATO gets involved, that Russia should be involved, and that the Israelis should stand aside and watch the two superpowers fighting it out. And that only when the mopping up operation is to be delivered, only then would Israel intervene in full force. Because the Israeli objective, for which they are looking forward for a world war, they want a world war, they are bloodthirsty for a world war, is that the world war will knock out the two superpowers. And a world war will substantially reduce the population of the world. And the world war would leave a world over which Israel can dominate and over which Israel can rule. That's the Israeli thinking. There is a kind of a convoluted thinking on the part of those who are waging what they call their jihad in Syria, with a lot of American dollars involved in it. And that is that when Imran Hosein stands up and uses the Quran to denounce it, that in the Quran Allah Most High has prohibited Muslims from entering into friendly relations and being allies of an alliance of Jews and Christians, when Jews and Christians become allies of each other. This, of course, never occurred in history until the Zionist Jewish alliance emerged today. And it is respect to this alliance that the Quran is speaking in Surah Al-Ma'idah. And when Allah goes further to say that if you join with them in friendship and alliance, which is what you're doing when you accept Saudi money and Saudi weapons and Qatari money and Qatari weapons and Libyan weapons and Turkish weapons and Turkish training. And Turkey is an ally as a member of NATO, which is the military arm of the Jewish-Christian Zionist alliance. When you enter into such relations with them in order to be able to wage your so-called jihad in Syria, the Quran says you no longer belong to us, you now belong to them. The Arabic, if you don't mind my quoting it, Morris, وَمَن يَتَوَلَّهُ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ مِنْهُمْ. Whosoever turns to them with that friendship and alliance now belong to them, not to us. There are other Christians in the world who do not belong to that alliance. The whole of Eastern Europe, the Eastern Christian Byzantine Empire of old, Eastern Christianity is not a part of that alliance. There are many Jews in the world who are not a part of that alliance. But these people who are engaged in this so-called jihad in Syria want to be allies of the Western Judeo-Christian alliance and want to oppose Russia and oppose the Eastern Christians that the Quran speaks of in a very positive way. There's a whole chapter of the Quran on Rome. Rome is Eastern Christianity, and they don't want to be allies of Eastern Christianity at all. They're very, very, very happy accepting weapons and accepting money and accepting training and support. And they're longing, these fellows, they're longing for NATO to come and bomb Syria so they can depose the government and take over Syria like they did in Libya. They don't belong to me. I don't want to see their faces, Morris. I don't want to hear their voices, Morris. I will not pray over their bodies, Morris, and I will not stand at their grave, Morris. This is the message I want to send to them. And when I oppose the Zionist attack on Syria, does that make me a supporter of the Syrian government? Does that make me a supporter of Hafiz al-Assad, the former leader? This is Disneyland thinking. This is unworthy of people of intellect. I am denouncing a Zionist attack on Syria. And for that, you want to make me a supporter of a government? I am not a supporter of any government in the world of Islam. There is no government in the world of Islam today which is standing up to do what Hugo Chavez did in Venezuela. None. Hugo Chavez said, I want to get out of the IMF. May Allah bless that man. He said, I want to take Venezuela out of the IMF because he recognized what the IMF was. Is there any government in the world of Islam which wants to get out of the IMF? How can I be a supporter of a government in the world of Islam? Is there any government in the world of Islam which is calling for the return of gold and silver coins as money? They all seem to be comfortable, including Iran, with their paper money. And you want to call me a supporter of a government in the world of Islam? I'm not. So I call this popcorn intellect, worthy of popcorn, that they should use this kind of argument against me. I am not a supporter of any government in the world of Islam. I support what is right and I oppose what is wrong.
You remind me of America. You know, so many Americans now are praying and hoping that the American military would intervene in America to stop it on its course of disaster, as if it's the only patriotic institution left there.
I feel sad for the American people because television has already done its job. American television was not there by accident. American television and ABC and CBS and NBC and the other networks and so on. They're there to play a strategic role on behalf of the Zionists in brainwashing people and taking them to fantasy land. And the job has been done. Those in the United States who still have some sanity and some clarity of thought are few in number. And while their voices are loud and their voices are eloquent, they do not have the kind of influence over public opinion to be able to sway public opinion. So I'm afraid the battle is lost in the United States.
There are elections coming up. Is there hope for Pakistan? What should Pakistan be doing?
Pakistan has never had the freedom to have its own government of its choice. From day one, the Zionists have ensured that they have control over every government that Pakistan has ever had in its history. And any time a government emerges in Pakistan, a leader who seeks to be independent, who shows signs of independence, they get rid of him or her. The last one was Benazir Bhutto. Benazir did every single thing that she could do. She walked the extra mile to try to convince them that she belonged to them, that she was an ally of theirs. But they didn't trust her. They knew what they did to her father, and she knew what they did to her father. And so they didn't trust her. And we knew what they did to Benazir. And now she's no more. Do these comments make me a supporter of Benazir? That's popcorn thinking. Her father, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, attempted to strike out on an independent path. He responded to the October 73 war and the oil boycott of the United States of America and the resultant phenomenal escalation in the price of oil. I think 400%, a 400% rise in the price of oil over 1 year. He recognized this to be an opportunity for the world of Islam. And he entered into a partnership with King Faisal of Saudi Arabia to try to build a future for the world of Islam. And these two together, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and Faisal, jointly planned and organized the second Lahore Islamic Summit Conference. The first one was in Rabat in September 1969 when the fire took place in Masjid al-Aqsa in Jerusalem. And then the second Islamic Summit Conference took place in Lahore in February of 1974. Henry Kissinger warned Bhutto, don't do this, we'll make a horrible example of you. They used the Shah of Iran to warn him. They used every single method that they could use to try to prevent that summit conference from taking place. But Bhutto courageously, and Faisal courageously decided to proceed and ignore them and their threats. And the summit conference did take place. It was one of the most momentous occasions for the Muslim world since the abolition of the Islamic Caliphate, 1924, February 74. The response to that summit conference took place 2 months later, when Indira Gandhi exploded the first Indian nuclear blast, and India joined the nuclear club. This is history that your viewers must learn. When India sent off that first nuclear blast to join the nuclear club, she did it 2 months after the summit to send a message not only to Bhutto and to Pakistan, but to the world of Islam, that we will not allow Islam to re-emerge as a powerful and independent voice in the world. No, you must not have a voice. You must remain a voiceless people, or you can be a gramophone record, speaking what the Zionists allow you to speak. So when India did that, Bhutto then responded and spoke these courageous words. And he was justified in saying that even if we in Pakistan have to eat grass, we are going to develop a nuclear deterrent. Pakistan did not seek nuclear weapons to commit aggression against anyone. No, it's only the United States that uses nuclear weapons against people who have not attacked them with nuclear weapons. And so Pakistan decided, as a matter of policy, even if we have to eat grass, we're going to develop a nuclear deterrent. And it was at the time, I believe, of Nawaz Sharif that they finally succeeded, somewhere around 95, in the first Pakistani nuclear blast. When Bhutto responded in that way, then the Zionists decided we have to get rid of both Bhutto and Faisal. They got rid of Faisal in the summer of 1975, 1 year later. A Zionist plot, and Faisal was gone. And as soon as Faisal was assassinated, Saudi Arabia's foreign policy turned 180 degrees. It was heading east, it now headed west. Back into the Zionist camp as soon as Faisal had been assassinated. And this is why the name of King Faisal remains written in gold in the hearts of Muslims around the world. So he was a different kind of Saudi. He did not betray Islam for Zionist dollars. Bhutto also lost his life 2 years later, and in a horrible way. Before that, after that, it was Zia-ul-Haq who was leading Pakistan. And while he was marching to their drums and fighting the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, he was a good boy. But as soon as he sought to achieve an independent position for Pakistan. They got rid of him. They didn't mind sacrificing the life of an American ambassador on board that plane. But they succeeded in getting rid of Zia-ul-Haq. And so it matters not what kind of government emerges from the elections in Pakistan or who wins the election. If the new government makes the mistake to attempt to be independent, adopt an independent position from the Zionists, they will be attacked and there will be the normal assassinations taking place in Pakistan. And so I feel sad for the people of Pakistan who have never been allowed freedom for all through their tortured history, never allowed freedom to have a government of their own choice.
You know, Iran is building an oil pipeline into Pakistan, and Pakistan is doing this in defiance of the Zionist West. Is this you've observed this?
Yes, I'm aware of this.
So it has some independence.
It is an indication that the Pakistanis are now finally getting a little bit of backbone. The Pakistan armed forces were absolutely furious of the circus that took place with the so-called killing of Osama bin Laden, and then his body was thrown into the sea, and then a big fish came and ate up the body, so there's no evidence. You know the story? Yeah. And quick crack, the wire bends, and that's the way the story ends. But the Pakistan armed forces were furious of what the United States did. And then there was the attack on the Pakistani camp in which 24 soldiers were murdered, absolutely murdered. And so the Pakistan armed forces did have some clout in Pakistan. And they are the ones who are now seeking to achieve some measure of independence. They don't have full measure of independence because NATO is still sending their trucks straight across Pakistan to supply their troops in Afghanistan. And the Pakistan armed forces can't stop that because of political decision.
The Cyprus banking saga. Could you tell us what actually happened in Cyprus?
Do you still have your money in the bank, Morris?
No. No.
You took it out already?
Yes.
And put it underneath your pillow?
It is under my pillow.
Okay. A lot of people are doing that because of Cyprus. I was astonished to learn that the laws are already there in the banking system. The laws are already there in place to permit that to be done. That money to be taken out of your account, seized, hijacked, to be able to pay debts that the government may owe or the state may owe. And therefore, I would say that Cyprus is not an isolated event, but rather a trial balloon. In the same way that, how many years ago was it, in Argentina? The Argentinian government froze every single bank account in the country, I think for a whole month. No one could touch their bank account for a whole month. And the Argentinian government got away with it. And so we are looking, Morris, at the new world of money. And it's a frightening world of money. The passage from Pax Britannica to Pax Americana was not one which was wrought only through military successes of the United States being able to wage the wars which brought about victory. It was also because the United States had the money to do what Britain could not do. And Britain had to be begging and begging and begging the United States for money. And the United States was very, very, very forceful in ensuring that we will finance you, but the cost that you will pay is that you will no longer have a British Empire. And you will no longer be the superpower that you were. That's the price you would pay. And so the passage from Pax Britannica to Pax Americana had a monetary and a financial component in it. The financial component in it was that Britain was broke, and Britain had to go to the United States for money, and you had to pay the price for it. The monetary component is the one that we should be paying more attention to now. And that is that Bretton Woods of 1944 was skillfully crafted to bring down one superpower and replace it with another. Bretton Woods gave to the United States rule over the world of money. And so now that we are at that moment in time when Pax Americana is entering into the history books and a new world of power is coming. I call it Pax Judaica, or Israeli rule over the world, or what is left of the world after the nuclear wars take place. This passage from Pax Americana to Pax Judaica must also have a monetary component and a financial component. And I think the secret lies in the fact that they have control all the gold reserves of the world. They control it. With a vast percentage of the gold reserves of the world is now under Zionist control. And so when the monetary system collapses, the present petrodollar monetary system collapses, when the US dollar goes down the drain, and the United States has to demonetize the US dollar and replace it with whatever they have in place. The new world of money is one in which gold is going to dominate. Whoever has the gold will have power. What that new monetary system is going to be like, all that I can say about it is going to be electronic money. And governments are not going to rule the world anymore. Bankers are going to rule the world. Bankers are already ruling the world from behind a curtain. But tomorrow the curtain will be gone. And the banking institution around the world becomes a world government. And the Zionists control the banking institution around the world. So electronic money tomorrow, and what is happening in Cyprus is an indication of how fragile would be the security that we'd have with money lodged in a bank account. So I'm so happy, Maurice, that you've taken yours out of the bank and put it underneath your pillow.
It's a very big pile. You know, America obviously owes more money than it could ever pay. This is the argument we hear about Greece, and there was the case in Cyprus, no doubt. But Europe is also struggling financially, and we're all going bankrupt through the cost of the wars. This is, many people say this, it doesn't take a big stretch of imagination to accept it. And we continue with the wars. And the wars are against indigenous people that cannot defend themselves. What are the aims of this? I call it genocide.
From our eschatological perspective, it is part and parcel of an effort, a necessary part and parcel of an effort to establish dominion, political and economic dominion over the whole world. Why would a people want to establish what was never done in history? Establish their political and economic dominion over all of mankind. Why would they want to do it? There's no question that they are doing it. The question is why? And the answer from our eschatological perspective, and we'll be very happy to hear what the other learned and distinguished scholars of Islam have to say. I don't know why they're so silent. I don't know why. What do they have to say in explanation of this phenomenon? We say from our eschatology that they want to establish their political and economic dominion over the whole world in order to deliver to the state of Israel the status of ruling state in the world, so that Pax Britannica paved the way for Pax Americana, and Pax Americana is paving the way for Pax Judaica. And Pax Judaica is meant to deliver to Israel the status of ruling state in the world. From our eschatological perspective, it's so simple and clear. The reason why Israel wants to rule the world is because tomorrow a man will stand up in Jerusalem, and our prophet described him 1400 years ago, an illiterate Arab in the desert, 1400 years ago, said that this man will be a Jew, that he would be a young man. Obama is not a young man. And I gather that the new Pope is also not a young man. Huh? No. He'd be a young man. He'd be powerfully built. He would have the curls that the Orthodox Jews have. And from Jerusalem, he will declare that I am the Messiah. So this is the messianic explanation. I am the Messiah. Be the Messiah. The Messiah is the son of Mary. Even Morris knows that. The Messiah is the son of the Virgin Mary. So he would be the false Messiah, the Antichrist, Dajjal. You've heard about Dajjal, haven't you, Morris?
Shaitan.
Oh, no, Morris, come on, you disappoint me. Shaitan or Satan is someone else.
But they're both devilish.
Satan was not created as an evil being. No. He made a free choice to disobey. He was arrogant. He says, I am superior to him, why should I bow to him? And so he is responsible for his conduct. And he will be punished on Judgment Day and sent into the hellfire. That's Satan. But Dajjal is different. Dajjal is divinely programmed to function the way he's functioning. He does not have a free will to choose this way or that. And hence he is not responsible for his conduct. No. And so when the true Messiah returns and kills the false Messiah, the false Messiah is not going to be resurrected on Judgment Day. He will not have to stand before the Lord God to be judged and to be sent into heaven or to hell fire. No. This is not the Dajjal. Dajjal is going to pass into non-existence. So this is our eschatological explanation. Why? They are stamping their blood-stained feet on all the peoples of the world, including the indigenous people.
But they seem to have a social engineering program. All the Zionist colonies, America, Britain, France, they're promoting multiculturalism, promiscuity, homosexuality. These are deliberate policies. These are not happening by chance. So what is their social engineering goals? Why do they exist?
The Quran introduces us to a word that you should know. It's called fasad. Fasad is to corrupt in a manner which is destructive. And of all the punishments which have been ordained, divinely ordained, punishment for stealing, for example, is to cut off the hand. But the punishment for fasad at its highest point is to crucify, to cut off the hands and the feet from opposite sides and crucify. This is the worst punishment of all reserved for those who commit fasad. And the Quran tells us that Gog and Magog have PhDs in fasad. And when you see that town which was punished, and the people of the town were expelled, and then a ban was placed on them that they can never return to reclaim that town as their own, until Gog and Magog are released. And they spread out in all directions. And with their indestructible power they take control of the world. Then you will see the people of that town being brought back to that town to reclaim it as their own. This is the 21st chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Anbiya. Which town is it? If you had read Jerusalem in the Quran, you would know that I have declared the town is Jerusalem. And most people agree with me that this is the correct interpretation of the verse. And so, Morris, when we see the Jews being brought back to the Holy Land, to reclaim it as their own. 2,000 years after they were expelled by divine decree. And then a ban was placed on them that they could never return. When we see them returning to reclaim that town as their own, we have an explanation from our eschatology. We say Gog and Magog are responsible. And I've written a book on an Islamic view of Gog and Magog in the modern world. Gog and Magog are most firmly entrenched in that Jewish-Christian alliance, the Zionist alliance. They did attempt to embrace Russia. That's why they had the Bolshevik Revolution. The Bolshevik Revolution was designed to break the back of the Eastern Orthodox Christian Church. That's the primary objective of the Bolshevik Revolution. The Bolshevik Revolution was timed to October 1917 in order to prevent Russia from getting Constantinople. I think I mentioned this in a previous interview. They didn't want Russia to get Constantinople. And so they launched the revolution in October 1917 when the Russian troops were close to Constantinople. And then they took Russia out of the war. So Russia could not get Constantinople. That was the immediate objective of the Bolshevik Revolution. But the long-term objective for which they had communism and the Soviet Union was to destroy the religious foundations of Christian civilization in Eastern Europe. And so while the Soviet Union was there, while communism was there in Eastern Europe and Russia, Gog and Magog were there. Yes, it was part of Gog and Magog. But then came the Berlin Wall, the collapse of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union. And now what we are witnessing before the eyes of the world and the bewildered eyes of the Zionists is religion, Christianity, Eastern Christianity, re-emerging as a dominant force in Russia, re-emerging in Romania. And there are signs in Bulgaria, there are signs in Czechoslovakia of a re-emergence of Greece, re-emergence of Eastern Christian Church, religiously applied. So this is not Gog and Magog. No, it was Gog and Magog when the Soviet Union was there. And this Gog and Magog alliance is the one responsible for corrupting the whole world and trying to bring about the emergence of one world order of Gog and Magog that will be a perverse world order and a godless world order, a world order in which all values will be destroyed. This is not happening by accident. If you have become a part of the world order, you lose your faith. If you want to keep your faith intact, you've got to withdraw from them and disengage from them. And for that, we're trying to build Muslim villages.